Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS NFL Sunday Week 4. Fun day of college football, man. We saw a lot of great games. I'm exhausted right now. Had a winning day. Can't argue with a winning day. It wasn't exactly a monster day of 1.3 units or something. And the bat signal did well. I think it went 2-0 in the bat signal. I'm pretty sure the bat signal is like 6-1 in the last 7. The bat signal's catching on, man. Yeah, so it's late. Probably not going to go. No, actually, knowing me, I'll get into it and start rambling. So, yeah, going to go through all the games. No live show in the morning. The live shows when there's an early game, an overseas game, it's only about half the viewership, and I want to watch the game and not. I have to spend while the game's on. I have to be setting up the show and the graphics, and it just does. The live show's not as good when there's a morning game overseas. So no live show. I am including some toast kicker props in this video, though. All right, great college football Saturday. Let's follow it up with NFL Sunday. Last Sunday was not good to me, so hopefully this is a better one. I mean, it's Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points? I would hope Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Panthers at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. Vikings Steelers are overseas in Dublin with the potato eaters. Yeah, we're over in Ireland for this one. Minnesota's offense not coming into this one in good shape. There's no Donovan Jackson. They are getting Ryan Kelly back, which is huge. He missed the last game. No Aaron Jones, obviously still no J.J. McCarthy. Jordan Mason's been running the ball well, though, so that's a positive. But missing a starter on the offensive line, that's their first-round pick. And they're also missing C.J. Ham. Not that the fullback is necessarily a crucial piece of the offense, but C.J. Ham's a good player. So, yeah, Vikings offense coming into this one a little bit hobbled. Now, Carson Wentz is going to be under center again. Didn't seem to matter last week. They scored 48 points, 6.7 yards per play, success rate over 54%. Now, they played Cincinnati with a backup quarterback, and it's a backup quarterback that kept gifting them field position. Slightly different than playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you might be saying, well, Kyle, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense isn't even any good this year. And I mean, you'd be right in saying that, but kind of think the Steelers defense is about to turn the corner. We kind of saw it. I mean, they played their best defensive game in week 3. It wasn't a good defensive game. The Patriots were turning the ball over left to right. They had 5 turnovers in the game, but that's kind of the Steelers defense. I mean, it doesn't always look excellent on paper. They make plays. They make plays that win football games. That's what the Steelers defense always does. So a good sign for Pittsburgh. They held New England to 14 points in Foxborough, 5.9 yards per play and 53% success rate. Definitely not good. But forcing the turnovers, the best defensive game we've seen so far from Pittsburgh. In addition to that, we're going to see a healthier Steelers defense. Deshaun Elliott's going to be back for this one. Also, possibly Joey Porter back as well. He's been practicing all week. He's listed as questionable. He hasn't officially been ruled in, but he's been practicing all week, so that's definitely a good sign. Still no Alex Highsmith for the Steelers. But it's not just the fact that they played their best defensive game. It's specifically how they did it. They shut down the run on the road in New England, a 20.7% success rate per rush, 4.1 yards per carry allowed. They played great defense against the run in New England, and the reason I think that's significant is Drake May was making plays. He was making throws. He was moving the chains with his arm. I mean, are we expecting Carson Wentz to do that? Because I'm not. I mean, if you're taking the run away from Minnesota, which is possible, they're missing an offensive lineman, they're missing Aaron Jones. If the Steelers are able to take the run away from Minnesota like they did against New England, I very seriously doubt Carson Wentz is going to make the throws that Drake May was making. So in my opinion, I think it's very possible we see Pittsburgh play their first great defensive game of the season here in Ireland. Now, on the other side of the ball, this is where you should definitely be worried if you're a Pittsburgh fan. This Brian Flores defense is kind of starting to look like last year's Brian Flores defense. They're 5th in success rate, 1st in EPA, looking like one of the strongest defenses in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers has been in almost this exact same situation last year. Overseas against Brian Flores' defense. He was with the Jets, obviously. Jets averaged just 4.5 yards per pass attempt in that game. 4.5%. So, yeah, Rodgers was having trouble with this Vikings defense overseas last year. I will say, though, despite the terrible numbers, despite it being a pretty poor offensive game for the Jets, it was 23-17. Rodgers had the ball just outside the red zone. He threw an interception. They were driving down to win the game. So despite all that, Rodgers still could have won that game. But yeah, Rodgers had problems overseas against this Brian Flores Vikings defense last year. As far as the matchup for Aaron Rodgers this year, we've actually got positives and negatives. We'll start with the negatives, and obviously the pass rush is the main negative. First in blitz rate, second in pressure rate. This Vikings pass rush is coming. They're going to be sending blitz after Aaron Rodgers' old ass. And I mean, Rodgers actually has a nice passer rating when blitz, but he also has a 32% off-target throw rate. So, yeah. The pass rush is coming, and we know Rodgers certainly doesn't have the mobility to deal with an elite pass rush anymore. So you don't like that if you're a Steelers fan. And some more bad news would be nobody has thrown on this Vikings defense all year. They're allowing just 161.7 passing yards per game, 5.8 yards per attempt, an average opponent pass rating of 77. This is looking like the best pass defense in the NFL. So yeah, not looking great for Rodgers. Now, there is some good news for Rodgers, though. Number one, Minnesota dealing with some injuries right now. Both Van Ginkel and Hargrave have not practiced this week. Van Ginkel didn't play last week as well. He was only on the field for 8 snaps. Hargrave played 11 snaps. So 2 of their key pieces on the defensive front dealing with injuries. Also, Metellus, the safety, he's one of their main tacklers. He's listed as questionable as well, although he has been practicing. And another angle you might like for Rodgers in this one is we know Brian Flores lives in cover 2. That's what Brian Flores does. He blitzes, sits in cover 2. So far this season, Rodgers has been better against zone coverage, and he's been better against 2 high safeties. So there's something. That's pretty thin, but there's something. Look, as far as betting this game, if the Vikings are fully healthy, I could understand them being a short favorite here, but with the injuries and Carson Wentz at quarterback, I don't think they have any business laying 2.5. I bet this one. I took the Steelers, Pittsburgh plus 2.5. I did place a bet. Philadelphia, Tampa. The Eagles have had problems with this team. 1-6 in their last 7 games against the Bucs. Now, A.J. Brown didn't play in the last 2, but the Eagles always seem to struggle with this Bucs team. And the reason they've struggled with the Bucs recently during the Todd Bowles era is Todd Bowles always seems to have a strong run defense. Whenever his defensive front is healthy, he always seems to give us a strong run defense. There was only one stretch I remember where the Bucs were struggling to defend the run under Todd Bowles, and it was that year where the whole defensive front was hurt. Levante David was hurt, Vita Vea. A bunch of pieces of that defensive front were hurt that year. When this defensive front is healthy, this Bucs defense can definitely stop the run, and they're looking like one of the strongest run defenses in the NFL so far this year. That being said, they're not exactly healthy. Kalijah Kancey's going to miss another game. He didn't play last week either. Logan Hall listed as questionable. He did participate in a practice, but he missed most of the week, so we'll have to wait and see with him. Definitely don't like that if you're a Bucs fan or if you're betting the Bucs here. Now, Kancey didn't play last week, and the Bucs still defended the run pretty well. 22.7% success rate per rush against the Jets. So we still saw that strong run defense last week, even without Kancey, but I think we can all agree that the Philadelphia Eagles are not the New York Jets in terms of a rushing attack. And this is an Eagles offense that's coming into this one completely healthy. Lane Johnson was on the injury report. He was listed as questionable, but he's been taken off. So the Eagles are going to be at full strength on this side of the ball. With the injuries to the Bucs defensive front, I do think the Eagles are going to be able to run the ball a little bit in this game. I mean, this is a Todd Bowles defense at home, though. I very doubt they're just going to steamroll them for 5 yards per carry, but I think they'll be able to run the ball a little bit. In my opinion, the bigger concern for the Eagles offense is right here. I mean, this is a Todd Bowles defense. You know those blitzes are coming. So far this year, 37.1% blitz rate. That's 7th most in the NFL. Jalen Hurts has some ugly-looking numbers when blitzed. Just 5.6 yards per attempt, a 76.9 passer rating. So he's really struggled when blitzed so far. I mean, he struggled with pressure as well, and the Bucs have been generating pressure. Overall, on this side of the ball, what I'm expecting to see is Tampa Bay sell out to take away the run, force Jalen Hurts to make throws over. That's pretty much everyone's game plan against the Eagles. But that's what I would expect to see from Tampa. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Hurts finally playing the Bucs with healthy wide receivers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles connect on a few big downfield throws. So I think the Eagles offense will struggle, but I think they'll connect on a few plays. They'll put some points up in this game. On the other side, we got the Bucs offense against the Eagles defense. And what is this Eagles run defense, man? 31st in success rate per rush so far this year. And I know we're talking about a Bucs offense that's missing Mike Evans, right? That certainly sucks. He's been a cornerstone of that offense forever. But they're getting Chris Godwin back, or it looks like they're getting Chris Godwin back. He's been practicing. Looks like they're getting Tristan Wirfs back as well. Godecky's out, the other tackle. He's been banged up the last couple weeks. So even though you look at this graphic and it looks like the Bucs offense is in terrible shape injury-wise, I actually think they might be in better shape than they were last week. Remember, the Bucs had a top 5 rushing attack last year, and it's off to a really slow start. We haven't really seen it yet. But the Eagles allowing over 133 rushing yards per game, 5.1 yards per carry, 46.7% success rate per rush. I think we're going to see Tampa run the ball here in this game. And in addition to the Eagles off to a slow start defensively, and this is probably part of it, they're not fully healthy. They lost 5 starters from that Super Bowl defense last year. Nakobe Dean is hurt. Nolan Smith Jr. just got hurt. Dory Jackson not playing in this game. I think Tampa Bay's offense is going to look good. I took the Bucs. I'm on the Bucs plus 3.5 here. I also put a bet on the over. I got 44.5. I think it looks like you can actually get 44 now. So it looks like it moved against me. I don't necessarily love that, but I'm on the Bucs plus 3.5, and I'm on the over. Saints, Bills. Saints fell a few points short last week. Those of you who watched, I had the Saints plus 7.5. It was over about 7 minutes into the game. Final score 44-13 in that one. So obviously we got the Saints on the road in Buffalo. We're talking about an NFL point spread north of 2 touchdowns. So obviously we know when we're looking at stats for this game, everything's going to be pretty lopsided. So I was looking back at NFL underdogs of 2 touchdowns or more since 2000. 4-41 straight up. Okay, they don't win often. 20-21-4 against the spread. So it's been about 500 underdogs of 2 touchdowns or more. So it has not been profitable to blindly take or fade favorites of 14 points or more in the NFL since 2000. Yeah. That being said, want to know the last time we saw it? It was actually recently, week 18 that just passed. It was the Saints on the road in Tampa Bay. They were catching 15 in this game, and they covered. Final score 27-19. So the last team to be favored to be an underdog of 14 points or more was the Saints just a few months ago, and they covered the number. So coming into this game, do we think that the Saints can keep it within 2 touchdowns? So the Saints are finally going to have a healthy offensive line in this one. And you might be saying, well, Kyle, you said that last week. I know. They were practicing last week. They were listed as questionable. They were practicing. I thought they were going to play. They both ended up not playing. Well, they've been removed from the injury report now. So Fuaga and Trevor Penning, both going to play in this game. They're not on the injury report. If they don't play, I'm going to be upset. Yeah, but they're both going to play in this game. So the Saints offensive line fully healthy for the first time since Spencer Rattler took over as quarterback last year. He has never had a healthy offensive line in front of him until now. And this Buffalo defense is going to be hobbled again. Still no Ed Oliver for the Bills. Still no Matt Milano for the Bills. So the Bills missing a couple of key pieces on the defensive side. Look, I mean, do we think the Saints are going to be able to run the ball in this game? They're 25th in success rate per rush, 27th in EPA per rush. They haven't had a rushing attack yet. They also haven't had a healthy offensive line. And honestly, the Bills haven't been a lead against the run at all. 23rd in success rate per rush, 28th in EPA per rush. So the Bills have actually struggled to defend the run a little bit. Does that mean I think the Saints can run the ball on them? I'd say probably not, but it's worth talking about. The Bills a little bit injured. The Saints healthier than they have been. That is the weakness of the Bills defense. And in addition to not having a rushing attack, the Saints also haven't had pass protection this year. That's certainly going to be a problem on the road in Buffalo. The Bills can definitely pressure the passer. Getting the pieces back on the offensive line should help, but I don't think they can realistically keep Spencer Rattler protected in the pocket in this one. There's not going to be anything on paper that indicates the Saints are able to move the ball on the Bills in this game. So, I mean, maybe the healthy offensive line, but there's really nothing. The matchup on the other side is a little bit interesting. The Saints have been terrible against the pass so far this year, and they're on the road against Josh Allen. Josh Allen throwing the ball has been excellent so far this year. I will say I don't really trust the Saints numbers against the run either. You look at this graphic, like, oh, the Saints are a top 10 run defense. Keep in mind, when you're calling the defense from behind, you're down 2 scores, you can afford to be a little more aggressive when taking away the run because you know your opponent is not going to be calling downfield throws. So I do not think the Saints are a top 10 run defense either. Look, when it comes down to it, I'm kind of just rambling. When it comes down to it, I can't lay the big number with the Bills in this one. I don't like how this game is sandwiched between 3 division games for Buffalo and the Ravens game on opening night. I'm expecting to see super conservative play calling from the Bills in this one. I mean, ask yourself, do you really expect Buffalo to drop Josh Allen back to pass 35 times in this game? They're going to be conservative with it. It's sandwiched between all these division games. And if you're thinking, well, Kyle, you said the same thing about the Miami game. Well, the Dolphins covered in that game. So I'm just a flat spot for the Bills here, kind of like Miami, but even flatter because this is a non-conference game. So I can't lay the big number with the Bills. It would only be the Saints plus 15.5 for me. Carolina on the road in New England. Panthers make a statement in week 3, 30-0 victory over their division rivals there, the Atlanta Falcons. That being said, it wasn't like we saw an offensive explosion. Success rate over 50% is certainly good, but 4.4 yards per play isn't good at all. So there was a lot of, quote unquote, the Falcons beating themselves in there, as well as the I'm not saying that the Panthers didn't play well, but 30-0, not a great indication of that game. And that Carolina offense, they're going into Foxborough even less healthy than they were last week. Still missing the 2 pieces on the offensive line. No Leggett, Coker still out. Sanders, the tight end, is out. McMillan is listed as questionable. Chuba Hubbard is listed as questionable. This offense is a mess right now in terms of injuries, and the Patriots defense might be coming into this game healthier than they have been because Christian Gonzalez has been practicing all week. Now, is he going to play? Does that move the needle right away? I'm not sure, but that is probably that's certainly one of their best defensive players. So the fact that he's been practicing all week, definitely a good sign. Now, this New England defense has definitely been vulnerable to the pass so far this season. They're 29th in success rate per dropback, 28th in EPA per dropback. But, I mean, let's really ask ourselves, do we think Bryce Young, with all those injured wide receivers and injuries to the surrounding offense, do you think he poses that much of a threat to go on the road and just piece the Patriots secondary up? I'm going to go with no on that one. New England's defense has been solid against the run. I don't expect Bryce Young to have run support in this game. Should be tough sledding for the Panthers offense. I think we're going to see a great defensive game from New England. But on the other side of the ball, this is where I kind of like the matchup for the Patriots even more. I know these 2 units, if you look on paper, Patriots offense against Panthers defense, I know it looks like a pretty close battle, but it's really not. The Patriots offensive numbers are getting skewed a little bit by a disaster of a week 1 game against the Raiders, just 13 points. I mean, 5.4 yards per play, 45% success rate actually isn't all that bad. That's not bad at all. But look at the 2 games since. 6.4 yards per play, success rate over 54%. It's kind of flying under the radar, but New England's offense is playing pretty well. I mean, 5 turnovers, and they still played that game down to the wire against the Steelers. And this Carolina Panthers defense has really been struggling to stop the run. They're allowing over 139 rushing yards per game, 5.6 yards per carry. I don't even really trust the Patriots rushing attack, but at home against this defense, I think we can count on New England to run the ball as well. We don't really see Drake May with run support often. I think we're going to see it in this one. And in terms of Drake May himself throwing the ball, well, Carolina has one of the least effective pass rushes in the NFL. They're dead last in pressure rate, under 25%. In time to pressure, they're 29th. So Drake May should have plenty of room to work in this one. And in addition to having a terrible pass rush, Carolina's also missing their 2 edge rushers. Patrick Jones, who has been out, he missed last game as well. DJ Wonnum, he played last game. He's out for this one. Both Panthers edge rushers out as well. Now, the Patriots have injuries to their offensive line also. We don't want to just sweep this under the rug. But Jared Wilson's a 3rd-round pick rookie. I mean, I would say that's probably the least important piece of their offensive line. And the other piece that's listed as questionable, he's been practicing all week. The guard, I'm pretty sure he participated in a full practice too, so I think he's going to play. Look, this one's pretty simple. I already liked the matchup for New England to begin with. You add on the fact that New England's coming off a heartbreaking loss where they turned the ball over 5 times, a game they probably should have won. And Carolina's coming off a monster 30-0 win where they didn't even play all that well. The Falcons just played terribly. So, yeah, I like New England. I would make this one a flat 7, to be honest. So, yeah, New England minus 5.5. I haven't bet this yet, but I think I'm going to. Washington, Atlanta. This will be a pretty quick description. I bet the Falcons in this one. The reasoning is pretty simple. That's why it'll be quick. So Commanders coming into this one very injured, right? I'm sure you already knew they're actually even more injured. No Jaden Daniels, Krosky Merritt, the running back's out. No Terry McLaurin, still missing the guard for one more game. I think he comes off the IR after this game. So yeah, Washington's offense is pretty decimated with injuries. And if you're thinking, oh, well, Kyle, they were kind of injured last week as well, and it didn't matter, which is true. They won 41-24 over the Raiders, but I'm not taking anything away from this game. If you remember, I picked Washington -2.5 on the show for that one. It was such a favorable scheduling spot for Washington. I mean, Washington's coming off Thursday Night Football with 3 extra days rest. The Raiders coming off Monday Night Football on a short week and flying across the country. Like, who scheduled that? If I'm the Raiders, I'm so pissed off about that. So yeah, I'm not taking anything away from that game. That was just such an advantageous position for the Commanders. Now they're in almost the complete opposite situation. Now they're going on the road to Atlanta against a really pissed off, embarrassed, humiliated Falcons team that just lost 30-0 to Carolina. It's almost the complete opposite of the spot Washington was just in against the Raiders. Now, I don't love the fact that A.J. Terrell is going to miss another game. Atlanta runs a lot of single high safety looks, and having your main corner out there, that's an important piece when you're running single high safety. So not having A.J. Terrell definitely throws a wrench into things as far as what they're trying to do defensively. But this Falcons defensive front has actually looked pretty decent, and I think they're capable of winning these battles against the Washington offensive line. But honestly, the real reason for the bet, I know you think the injuries and the spot and all that, and that's part of it, but I think the Falcons are going to have no problems at all running the football in this game. Atlanta really seems to be getting the run game going. They're averaging 5.8 yards per carry, over 175 rushing yards per game in their last 2. Success rate up close to 47% per rush. Now, look, I've been very vocal about how I think the Washington run defense is going to be terrible this year. It was terrible last year, and they didn't really do anything to address it. I do want to give them some credit. They've actually played great defense against the run in 2 of their 3 games. So the Washington fans that were pissed off about me saying that, there's your credit. You have played good defense against the run in 2 of your 3 games. That being said, one was against the Giants and the other one was against the Raiders in that terrible spot. Might be the 2 least efficient rushing attacks in the NFL. When they saw Green Bay, they weren't able to defend the run. And when they saw the Giants, Andrew Thomas wasn't even back yet. So no, I don't think this is a good run defense. I think Atlanta is going to put Michael Penix in a really favorable situation here. The run should be working. There should be a lot less pressure on him. So yeah, I like the Falcons to bounce back in a major way. I got the Falcons at +1.5. It's now -2. Honestly, I'd still bet it under a field goal, though. I got a great number, but I would still bet the -2. I think the Falcons win by a touchdown. Cleveland, Detroit. So it's looking like the Lions defense deserves our respect. I was talking about it last week when I did the Monday Night Football video. The Lions had a terrible first half against Green Bay, and we were all watching it. I'm pretty sure it was like game of the week at 4:25 p.m. It was like the primetime afternoon slot there, and we all saw it. Jordan Love piecing them up, and the Packers were up like 20-3 almost immediately, and we were all like, okay, the Lions defense is bad. Well, since halftime of that game, they've been playing great defense, and they haven't even been doing it healthy. So yeah, I think the Lions defense deserves our respect. I know their numbers on the year don't look all that great. They're skewed from the first half of the Green Bay game. And then also the Bears, they moved the ball up and down the field a little bit in garbage time when they were down 30 points in that game. So these numbers don't really tell a story. Detroit's playing very good defense right now. And as far as the Cleveland offensive numbers, they do tell the story. They're that bad. They're that bad. They do tell the story. They're one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Actually, I think I would take the Browns offense over Tennessee. Well, Houston's actually terrible too. But yeah, they're one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Now, the Lions are still missing a couple pieces there up front, but they were missing him in the Ravens game as well, and they played a great defensive game. On the road in Baltimore in primetime, that's about as tough as it gets for a defense. And they were missing Davenport and McNeil in that game. They played great. So, yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree here that Cleveland should struggle to move the ball in this game. I don't think that's a hot take. I'm pretty sure everyone would agree with that. Through their first 3 games, Cleveland's averaging 15.3 points per game, 4.7 yards per play, success rate under 41%. So, yeah, the Browns are going to struggle to move the ball in this game. It's the matchup on the other side. This is what I think makes this game interesting. So obviously we know the Lions offense has looked very good. They look great on Monday Night Football against the Ravens. They're actually first in the NFL in success rate, 3rd in EPA. They're looking like one of the best offenses in the NFL so far this year. And I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying I also think Cleveland happens to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. I don't think those numbers really tell the story. There was some weird shit that went on at the end of that Baltimore game. That was like a close game, and Baltimore ended up winning 42-14 or something. So I think Cleveland might be one of the best, if not the best defense in the NFL. So this is a very interesting matchup. on this side. And I don't love the fact that Detroit might be coming into this one without Taylor Decker. He hasn't practiced all week. So I definitely don't like that. That's probably their best offensive. Well, him or Sewell are their best offensive linemen. So yeah, I definitely don't like that. We know Dan Campbell wants to run the ball. Well, look how that's worked out. Look at how teams have fared trying to run the ball against Cleveland so far this year. And it's not like they play bad offenses. Cincinnati, that was still with Burrow. Not really a rushing offense, but still a good offense. Baltimore, Green Bay. In those 3 games, Cleveland's allowing 2.5 yards per carry, 59 rushing yards per game, under 31% success rate per rush. This is looking like the best run defense in the NFL. So this is a Detroit offense that wants to run the ball. Cleveland might have the best run defense in the NFL. They've got one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. This is going to be a matchup on this side. The thing is, I just don't trust Cleveland to do anything offensively. So I can't possibly take the Browns. I did bet the game. I took the under 45.5, and this bet is really reliant on the pace. The Lions, we saw it on Monday night, running an extremely slow pace. In terms of seconds between snaps, they're 29th in the NFL, and they made it a point. On Monday night, there were times you saw it. Jared Goff was just standing there looking at the play clock, waiting for it to run down. They made it a point to run a slow pace. I'm hoping they do that in this game because against this Browns defense, we could see 5 or 6 minute field goal drives out of Detroit, which is obviously excellent for the under. I think Detroit actually figures out a way to cover this big number. I won't be betting that. I am on the under at 45.5. It's at 44.5 now. Again, it's very dependent on the pace. Detroit offensively, sometimes they do things differently at home in the Dome. So maybe they're scared of the Browns run defense and they come out throwing it and running a fast pace in this one, in which case my bet's probably in trouble. But if the Lions come out running that same slow pace that we saw in the Baltimore game, I should be in really good shape with this under. So I did bet this. I'm on the under 45.5. Titans are on the road in Houston. So betting this Titans team has just been a death sentence. 3-17 against the spread in the last. That's wild. 3-17 against the spread in the last 20. That's absolutely crazy. That being said, you know what this reminds me of? Let me take you back to last year. If you remember, Will Levis is quarterback, him and Mason Rudolph switching on and off. The Titans are terrible. They were 2-15 against the spread last year. Nobody wanted to bet the Titans. Week 12, they go on the road to Houston. Texans are laying 8 points. Nobody wants to bet this awful Titans team, and Will Levis went off. Tony Pollard had a big game. They scored 32 points and won outright. This is week 12. And if you think the Titans are bad now, I promise you they were every bit as bad last year with Will Levis. So it's very similar where nobody wants to bet the Titans. They're going into Houston. No one really wants to lay the points with the Texans either, but no one wants to bet the Titans. They're not covering anything. And then Will Levis lit them up, man. The Titans had a big offensive game. I still don't know how, but it happened. 32-27. Tell me there's not a lot of similarities from that game from last year. So as far as matching these two teams up on the field, I mean, obviously we know the Titans have one of the worst offenses in the NFL. That doesn't need to be said. They're 30th in success rate, 31st in EPA. In fact, the 3 worst offenses in the NFL are the Titans, the Browns, and your Houston Texans. So 2 of the worst 3 offenses in the NFL squaring off in this one. As far as the Houston defense, I got to say, not exactly putting up the elite numbers we were expecting. 18th in success rate, 13th in EPA. The thing is, the pass rush numbers look pretty solid and pretty much all we need to see because Cam Ward really struggling with this. He's been under a ton of pressure, hasn't really done much from a clean pocket. He's clearly not comfortable yet. 2.76 time to throw. That probably adds to it. If you look at his numbers so far, he's been pressured on over 43% of his dropbacks. He's one of the most pressured quarterbacks in the NFL so far this year. Now, maybe you probably blame some of it on the offensive line, but it seems like he's also holding on to the football. So maybe some of this is on him. But yeah, definitely struggling with the pass rush so far this year. And Houston, although the defense hasn't been perfect, hasn't been as elite as we were expecting, they have been generating some pressure. So that should be tough for Cam Ward in this one. By the way, on top of that, they're going to be playing another game without J.C. Latham at right tackle. So, yeah, it's tough to see a path to Cam Ward dealing with this Texans pass rush. Although, remember, it was kind of the same situation last year. Houston was playing lights out defense, and then Will Levis lit them up. So, it was kind of the same situation last year. I don't imagine Cam Ward will have run support in this game. But you know what? I couldn't imagine it last year either. And Tony Pollard had a game running the ball. So, we'll see. I suppose you can point at the fact that Stingley missed a couple practices this week. Maybe he doesn't play. There's something. I'm just nitpicking here. There's nothing on paper that indicates Tennessee's going to go off offensively, but they did last year in this game. Not a ton of good news for the Titans on this side of the ball. Now, if we flip it over to the other side of the ball, there's plenty of good news for the Titans because Houston's offense, it's been every bit as bad as the Titans offense has. They're 31st in success rate, 29th in EPA. We're all talking about how Cam Ward's been struggling, how bad Cam Ward has been. Dude, CJ Stroud has like the same numbers as Cam Ward. No, I mean, obviously he's played better than Cam Ward, but just looking at the numbers, he hasn't been like head and shoulders better than Cam Ward. He's really struggling. 79.1 QB rating. So yeah, Cam Ward's struggling, but based on what we've seen so far, I don't know how much of a step up CJ Stroud is. Now, I do expect CJ Stroud to have some success throwing the underneath short throws in this game. The Titans pass rush is pretty good. They're 8th in the NFL in time to pressure, 2.44 seconds, but they're just 25th in pressure rate. So what does that mean? It means their pass rushes, they're winning their battles, but the quarterback's getting the ball out of his hands quickly. And CJ Stroud, despite his struggles, 2.52 seconds average time to throw. So he has done a good job getting the ball out of his hands quickly. So a Titans pass rush that's winning its battles against a Texans offensive line that isn't any good. CJ Stroud gets the ball out quickly. I expect to see CJ Stroud complete a lot of short underneath throws. And to add to that, the Titans have been running a lot of too high safety looks, 55.8% frequency, ninth most in the NFL. And against too high safety so far this year, first of all, really bad. 53.6 passer rating, but look at the deep throw percentage, 9.4%, just 5.5 yards per attempt. So in addition to the Titans pass rush winning their battles, but quarterbacks getting the ball out of their hands quickly, so CJ Stroud's going to be getting the ball out of his hands quickly, he's going to be seeing a lot of too high coverage, which he never throws downfield on. He never has success throwing the ball downfield. So I'm expecting a lot of short underneath throws. I don't do many props. I bet CJ Stroud over 19.5 completions at plus 102. So I have a prop in this game. Now, as far as Houston on the ground, I really don't know what to do with these data points. I truly thought the Texans were going to run the ball in Jacksonville. So, I mean, they didn't. And now the Jags have one of the best run defenses in the NFL on paper so far this year. Not really sure what to do with that. So, I mean, you could look at the Texans' rushing numbers and say, hey, this is a really bad rushing attack. 22.2% success rate per rush is terrible. This is a really bad rushing attack. You can also say, if we're accepting the fact that Jacksonville's an elite run defense, you could also say they played 3 of the best run defenses in the NFL. So there's 2 ways to look at that. And you can kind of do the same thing with Tennessee's defensive front. Yeah, they've gotten run on in all 3 games, but Indianapolis is like the best offense in the NFL. The Rams' run game is getting going. That's looking like one of the best offenses in the NFL. And they played Denver in Mile High, the first game of the season. So I don't know what to do with these data points. I don't know if Houston can't run it. I don't know if Tennessee can't stop the run. I don't know what to do with these. Look, as a whole, I think we need to start pricing Houston as a bad football team because I believe they are. Their offensive line is really bad. I don't think the current constructed offensive line is capable of giving CJ Stroud the space he needs to develop and to get the ball into the hands of Nico Collins. I think we need to start pricing Houston as a bad team. Tennessee's a really bad team, but do we really think the Texans are 7.5 points better? 7.5? The answer is no. Tennessee won this game outright last year in a very similar situation where nobody saw the Titans with Will Levis doing anything. They put up 32 points and won outright. Give me the Titans plus 7.5. It's gross because I just lost a terrible bet with the Titans last week. Give me Tennessee plus the points. Chargers, Giants. So we got a 3-0 team against an 0-3 team. Checked it out. The 3-0 team has been profitable. So I was actually expecting this to say something different. No. Betting the 3-0 team against the 0-3 team since 1999, I think it was. I actually closed the window. I didn't even write down the date. 14-9-1 against the spread in the last 24 instances over however date. I'm pretty sure it was 1999. So betting the 3-0 team has been profitable against the 0-3 team. And when I'm looking at this Giants team, I think the struggles on the offense was pretty predictable. I don't think that surprises anybody. But this defense was hyped up all offseason. That's all I heard was the Giants' defense is going to be good. They got all these edge rushers. And, I mean, if we're looking at the numbers here, they look like one of the worst defenses in the NFL. 31st in success rate, 29th in EPA. So is this what this Giants defense is? Is the hype ever going to come around? Are the Giants ever going to start playing some defense? Well, if you're a Giants fan, you can at least point to the fact that the Giants are coming off their best defensive game by far. Now, it wasn't an elite defensive game against Kansas City. 56.5% success rate is certainly terrible, but 5.4 yards per play, 22 points. It is Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. In comparison to their first two games, that was an elite defensive performance. So there's something. If you're a Giants fan, if you're betting the Giants are coming off their best defensive game of the year. And remember, the Chargers are coming into this one pretty banged up. Mekhi Becton is not going to play in this game. He left the last game early. Bradley Bozeman is listed as questionable, although he's been practicing. So I think he's going to play. Najee Harris is obviously out for the year. Will Dissly is not going to play in this game as well. So Chargers coming into this one a little bit hobbled. Justin Herbert, up to this point, has been able to hold on to the football for a long time. And his numbers from a clean pocket, I don't have the list. I would imagine it's one of the most efficient in the NFL. So he's been dynamite from a clean pocket. But if you look at his numbers when pressured, there's definitely a drop-off there, just 5.5 yards per attempt. Are the Giants capable of pressuring Justin Herbert here? Now, the Giants' pass rush so far hasn't been all that great, but it was making some noise in that Kansas City game. And considering the Chargers, the weakness of that offense is already the offensive line. Then you add in the fact that they're missing a starter. Maybe the Giants can generate some pressure on Justin Herbert. I mean, this Chargers run game hasn't been anything. It's not like Justin Herbert's had a bunch of run support. So even though the Giants' run defense is bad, I'm not sure if the Chargers are the offense to exploit that. This is not a very good rushing team, or at least hasn't been so far. It's very un-Harbaugh-like. And if we're being honest, the Chargers offense hasn't even looked that good the last couple of games. I mean, they beat the Raiders 20-9 because of Geno Smith interceptions. I was on Chargers -3. I sweat that entire game. The Chargers weren't consistently moving the ball on the Raiders like that. And then last week against Denver, they weren't doing anything for most of the game. I mean, they should have lost that game to Denver. So sometimes we get held up on the 3-0 record, and the Chargers offense looks so good in the opener. Chargers offense hasn't looked that good the last couple weeks. Now, on the other side of the ball, I mean, who knows, man? This Giants offense is so bad. Obviously, there's a quarterback change. Does that matter? Does that move the needle for us? I mean, I think Jackson Dart is an upgrade. But this Chargers defense has been really good. They actually lead the NFL in success rate, third in EPA. They are missing two key pieces here. Maybe the two most important players on this defense in Perriman and Mack, but they were missing both of those guys last week, and they played a pretty solid defensive game against the Broncos. So I'm not sure how much we should react to this. Obviously, missing those pieces is huge, but I was on Denver +3. I probably should have won the bet, but it pushed. It's not like those missing defensive pieces had Denver moving up and down the field. That's not what happened. Honestly, it's impossible to gauge this Giants offense right now because we've seen such unique data points. I mean, think about what we've seen from the Giants offense so far this year. How could we possibly have a feel for this unit? Week 1, they were absolutely terrible against Washington. It was a disgusting offensive game. Then week 2, they get in a shootout. Russell Wilson throws for 450 yards against Dallas. The offense looked electric. And then in week 3, I thought the offense played pretty well. Russell Wilson was terrible. But I actually thought the offense around Russell Wilson was all right. So I do think Jackson Dart is an upgrade from Russell Wilson. I've watched a lot of, if you're a college football fan, you've watched a lot of Jackson Dart football. He's been a starter forever. So I think he's an upgrade from Russell Wilson, but you can't always go by the eye tests. Just because a college football player doesn't always translate to an immediate NFL starter, especially at the quarterback position. So I don't really know. I think it's an upgrade. I really don't know what to do with this game. The Chargers offense hasn't looked good enough for me to lay 6.5 on the road injured. So I guess I would lean towards the Giants, but I think under might be the way to go here. I would imagine we're going to see a conservative game plan from Harbaugh. He's notorious for running a slow pace. He's out on the East Coast injured. I mean, he knows he's got the better team. Just run the ball, play conservative. Just don't lose the game. The Giants will lose it for you. So I would imagine we'll see a conservative, slow-paced game plan from Harbaugh. I do think the Giants' defense is coming around. I don't really know what to expect from Jackson Dart. So maybe an under. If you can get a flat 44. I'll say under 44. I don't have a bet on this game. Jags 49ers. This is a tough one. A lot of moving pieces here. How much does the Nick Bosa loss affect this 49ers pass rush? I mean, Trevor Lawrence has been practical joke bad under pressure this year. And the 49ers were generating pressure early in the season, but then Nick Bosa goes down, and actually Kyler Murray wasn't under a ton of pressure in that game. So I don't know if this 49ers pass rush can no longer be trusted without Nick Bosa. I don't know if I trust Trevor Lawrence even with a clean pocket anyway. He's been pretty bad with a clean pocket. And on the other side, when it comes to the 49ers offense, it looks like they are getting healthier in some areas. I mean, Brock Purdy looks like is going to play in this game. There's still question marks all over the place. And honestly, what do we even think about Jacksonville's defense right now? I mean, I think we can all agree that these numbers are probably fraudulent. But as of right now, the Jags have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They're third in success rate, second in EPA. I bet Houston last week. I was sure the Texans were going to run the ball on the Jags. I was sure that the Jags' elite defensive numbers were going to come to a scratching halt. Didn't at all. They played another elite defensive game. Now, they haven't really played any good offenses, but we're in week 4. At what point do we start saying, hey, maybe this Jags defense is all right? I mean, at some point we have to say that. So we're in week 4. I don't know what to do with this Jags defense. So I really have no idea what to do with this one. It's a straight pass. Put a gun to my head. 49ers. Colts Rams. I already talked about this one throughout the week, so I'll just put the clip in here. So the Rams defense against the run has been excellent. To go into Philadelphia and hold that rushing attack down. Yeah, I mean, no one's run on the Rams yet, and they're pretty healthy on the defensive side of the ball. This is a very strong defense that doesn't often get talked about as a very strong defense. Look, I'm not saying the Colts offense is going to get shut down. Clearly, Steichen's got something rolling there, but I think this could be the Colts' worst offensive game. Not going to be. I think we're at the point where it's like we can't just completely count the Colts offense out, but I think this will be their worst offensive game. I think the Rams are capable of taking the run away, like they just did in Philadelphia on the road. But really, my bet on the Rams is on the other side of the ball. Poor Lou. This is a really, really tough matchup for the Colts defensively. They've been struggling to stop the run. That's been the weakest element of their team so far this year. The Rams, the last 2 games, 5.8 yards per carry, 52.9% success rate per rush. That rushing attack is coming alive, and we've seen this before from the Rams. It gets going. Once it gets going, it's like, oh, shit, this team can run the ball. And we saw it the last 2 games on the road in Philly and then or at home against Tennessee, whatever. But they've run the ball the last 2 games. The Colts are a bottom 6 or 7 run defense on paper so far this year. So right off the bat, the Colts are coming in like, okay, we got to figure out a way to stop this run game. And another thing the Colts don't do is pressure the quarterback at a high rate. Yeah. So you're going to give Matt Stafford at home, coming off a loss, run support and time to throw. You say what you want about Matt Stafford. If he has run support and a clean pocket, I'd still think he's a top 3 quarterback. If he has those 2 things, obviously he wouldn't be a top 3 quarterback because of the other aspects, the age, the mobility, and all of that. But if he has run support and a clean pocket to throw from, I don't know like how many quarterbacks I would take before him in a situation like that. So he should have run support, and he should have clean pockets to throw from in this game. Not to mention Kenny Moore, most likely not playing in this game. That's one of the Colts' best defensive players. Yeah. DeForest Buckner practiced, though. So it looks like they are going to get Buckner. We don't know that for sure. But, yeah, honestly, you think about it with the Broncos game. What would this line be at if the Broncos win that game? I think we'd be up at 4.5. Bears, Raiders. I think the main question with this game is the offensive data points for the Bears. What do we think of these? Is the Cowboys defense that bad? Are the Lions and Vikings defenses that good? It's kind of a tough offense to get a feel for because there are 3 data points. 2 of them are against maybe 2 of the best defenses in the NFL, and the other one is against maybe the worst defense in the NFL. So kind of tough to get a feel for an offense when their data points are that extreme. So I would imagine the Bears offense is somewhere in the middle of that. That being said, I mean, they're going out to Vegas to play this Raiders defense. I think this Raiders defense is very good. I was saying it earlier. I don't put any stock in that Washington game. It was a bullshit scheduling spot. I don't care about 41.7.8 yards per play. I don't care. I'm disregarding that whole data point. In the first 2 games, the Raiders were playing some defense. I very seriously doubt Caleb Williams will have any run support in this game. The Raiders looked excellent against the run in the first 2 games, and that's not weird. They brought back Patrick Graham as defensive coordinator. They were a lead against the run last year. So the Raiders might have a really strong run defense. And we're talking about Caleb Williams on the road without run support, missing an offensive tackle, by the way. Darnell Wright's not going to play in this game. That's one of the most important pieces on this Bears offensive line. If you want to trust Caleb Williams on the road without run support, missing an offensive tackle, be my guest, but I certainly am not. I don't know if he's going to have time to throw in this game. Remember, the Raiders have some playmakers on that defensive line, and keep in mind, the Raiders have run more zone coverage than any other defense in the NFL. Caleb Williams has some really nice-looking numbers against man coverage. small sample, but maybe something to put in our pocket and remember. Against zone coverage, 27.1% off target throw percentage. So I don't trust Caleb Williams at all in this spot. I'm going to need him to do it twice in a row before I trust him. I think this Raiders defense is pretty good. And on the other side of the ball, I mean, look at this graphic. There's just red everywhere. The Raiders offense against the Bears defense, this is disgusting. The thing is, what's one thing we can always count on with Geno Smith? When he has clean pockets, he can make the throws. I don't trust him in clutch situations. I don't trust him in the red zone. I don't trust him under pressure. But when he has clean pockets, he can make the throws. And this Bears pass rush hasn't been very good at all. They're 30th in time to pressure, 27th in pressure rate. So, again, I don't trust Geno Smith, but at home, time to throw, he can make the throws. And remember, this Bears defense is definitely not healthy right now. They're missing Grady Jarrett and TJ Edwards. Those are two of the most important pieces on the defense in terms of defending the run. We have yet to see Ashton Genty have any room to run this season. This might be it. At home against a Bears defense that not only has been struggling against the run, but is missing their main two pieces in terms of defending the run. So Geno Smith, in addition to having clean pockets, he might have some run support for the first time this season. This is a Raider spot for me. Not only do I like the matchup, but we've got Chicago coming off a huge win. The Raiders coming off a blowout loss. Yeah, give me Raiders -1.5. Ravens, Chiefs, I already talked about this one on the live show. I don't have time to re-record a whole thing. It's late, so I'm just going to play the clip. I think maybe this is a little bit of hot take culture. I think Harbaugh was out-coached in that game, and it was pretty clear to me that Dan Campbell came in with a very clear-cut game plan. So on the offensive side, they were purposely letting that play clock run out. They came in with a plan. We're holding on to the ball forever. And there were times where Goff was just standing there looking at it. They were like, they were, that was a point. Like, we are holding on to the football forever in this game, which obviously was successful. But in addition to that, I think, and this is more opinionated. So based on what we've seen the last few months, the second half of last year into this year, Lions haven't been much of a threat in terms of rushing the passer. And I think Baltimore kind of came in not really expecting Lamar to be under siege like that and kind of unprepared. And because, like you said, he looked hesitant, he looked uncomfortable, and I think they just weren't prepared for that. I think they most definitely will be prepared for that on the road against Spagnuolo. They know how to play Spagnuolo. They're sending blitzes, and they're going to make it a point to have things in motion where Lamar's able to get the ball out of his hands quickly. I think the pass rush caught Baltimore off guard, and the way Detroit was able to run the ball and stay on the field forever just to put Baltimore in a real. I just think they got out-coached, and I don't think that's going to happen here to that extent. And I think the Ravens offense should bounce back in a major way. But seeing the injuries to Baltimore's defense, I talked about this game the other night, and I said Ravens and over. So I'm just going straight with the over. It would still be Ravens. I wouldn't change sides, but that defense, man, and the Ravens with Hollywood Brown or with Worthy back. Not that Worthy is a needle mover or anything, but the Ravens run a lot of man coverage and like the single high safeties. I think Mahomes, who never airs it out, I think we can see Mahomes connect on a big play or two. Yeah. Thanks for watching. See you guys at midnight. I'll upload a Monday Night Football video later on.